Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm going to do another video on the Avant. I'm going to call this one my full review, but bear in mind, this will be the most biased video I probably ever do, unless I design another knife. But the Luft Concepts Avant is a knife that I co-designed with my good buddy Ryan. He goes on Instagram as Rimmer Designs, and the pre-order is about to go live, so I'd like to have my full review done for that. And so I'm going to toot my own horn here. Short version of how I feel about this knife: I'm incredibly happy with it, and I'm proud of it. I like this knife a lot. I've carried it, I shouldn't say exclusively, because I've also carried it in a, it's been accompanied by another knife a few times, but for the last several weeks, I guess coming up on a month now, that I've had a prototype of this knife, it has been in my pocket every single day, every waking moment. If there's been a knife with me, then it's been in my pocket. The only time that I've been like awake and up and about and it hasn't been in my pocket has been at Disneyland, because you can't carry a knife there. So I've been inseparable, or yeah, the knife has been inseparable. I don't know. It's been with me constantly. I've used it for everything that I use knives for. I've put it through its paces like crazy because I want to be testing it. I want to make sure, with it being a prototype, that it lives up to what it's supposed to be. And also, I just want to use it because I'm incredibly excited by it. So this is my knife, mine and Ryan's, to be fair. And I want to make that very abundantly clear as well. This is not just me. It feels at moments like sometimes I get more spotlight than Ryan does, and I think a lot of that is just because I have a YouTube channel and people who know me in this way, and Ryan doesn't have a YouTube channel. He doesn't make content in that way. So sometimes people talk about this as my knife, and it is our knife, but there will be moments where I'm going to say my knife because, in essence, with it being our knife, me and Ryan, that does mean it's my knife too. We're 50-50 on Luft Concepts. It was a 50-50 design effort, and the company has been 50-50, and that's the way it's going. But yeah, so I'm going to dig into the knife a little bit. I'm going to talk about why I love it so much, why we made design choices, and yeah, I'm also going to do something pretty atypical I planned for this video. I'm going to flip the camera to kind of a top-down view. I'm not a tabletop review kind of guy, but I know a lot of people want to see size comparisons with this knife and some of the closer details. So to kind of finish the video at the end, if that's what you're here for, then I guess you can skip ahead, but I'm going to go ahead and do kind of a tabletop size comparison portion of the video, where I'll go over showing it next to the PM2 and the Para 3 and a couple other knives from my collection that I think makes sense to put it next to, that people will be able to get a good bearing on what it's actually like in person by seeing it next to some other things. So let's go ahead and just kind of jump right into it. I'll start by quickly saying the details on the pre-order for those who haven't heard. Basically, in essence, what's going to happen is this Saturday, I'm filming this, it's Thursday night, isn't it? Yeah, today's Thursday. So Saturday, 2 days of when I'm filming this. This will go live on Friday. So if you're watching this the day it goes up, tomorrow, Saturday, August 14th, 2021, at 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time, the listings that are right now on luftconcepts.com, luftconcepts.com, for the Avant. There's 2 variations that are listed there right now. Those will switch from saying coming soon to being available to pre-order. This is the first time that I've released a product, that Ryan has released a product like this, that we've done this, so I have no idea whether it's going to be a quick sellout. That would be incredible to behold. I wouldn't guess that that's going to happen because, I don't know, I've never done it before, but whatever happens, that's when the pre-order goes live. There's going to be 150 available pre-order slots for this variation. This is the belt satin with black micarta. There will also be 150 of the OD green micarta with black PVD coating. I don't have that prototype here at the moment because I was supposed to get 2 of each variation since I'm the one sending the review samples around, but I only got 1 of the OD green and black. Something happened to the other prototype in making it prototype problems. It is what it is. So I only have the 1, and that's with Metal Complex at the moment. When he's done with it, I don't know if I'll keep sending that one around as much because I want to experience that one some more too. But before sending it to him, I experienced it for a couple of days. I did an unboxing here on the channel. You can see it kind of in motion there, and there's some B-roll that you have probably already seen some of at this point if you're watching this now that it's been through post. Anyway, there will be 150 of each variant available for pre-order. We will offer, I shouldn't say we will offer, there will be more than that total produced because we are going to be working with some retailers. There's at least 1 that's already confirmed, some more that are potential. So we've allocated 100 units that we will be ordering for retailers. We're capping it at that. There won't be more than 100 that will ultimately go to retailers on this production run. And then we're ordering some extra that we will have so that we can handle all of the warranty issues that may arise. Hopefully, there won't be any, but on the off chance that there are, we will have knives on hand. We're also going to be ordering extra components, parts and hardware and all that kind of stuff so that we're set up to handle stuff. If there are cases where things go wrong with the knives, we want to stand behind our products. We're making sure that happens. So in total, 300 units will be available for pre-order. That'll be split between the 2 units, 150 of each. We plan to order a grand total, give or take, this could change just slightly, of 225 of each colorway. And that'll mean that there'll be 225 of each ultimately of this run in existence, right? And we plan to number them. So you can't pick your number, not going to deal with that, but they'll be numbered, and that's how the first run is going to work. So 300 units going available for pre-order Saturday, August 14th, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will leave the pre-order open until they are all sold, and even if they don't all sell, this is going to happen. This isn't one of those things like a Kickstarter where if it doesn't reach a certain amount, it won't happen. If they get pre-ordered, that just means we don't have to invest a bunch of our own money to get production done. That's just the way it works. By pre-ordering one, you'll get one for sure. You'll also get an incentivized price. They're $2.99 at pre-order. Once they go to retail, they'll be more like $3.25. And people who pre-order are going to get special things in their packaging. They're going to get fun stuff along with the knife. And yeah, we're going to make it worth it to be one of the people who pre-ordered one. Not just because you save the $26, but also because the experience and the things it comes with will be better. But yeah, so that's how the pre-order is going to work. Hopefully that answers most of the questions. If you have more questions about the knife and I don't cover it here, the site is going to be linked in the description of this video. I should have said that right in the beginning. luftconcepts.com will be linked. There are listings for each variation of the knife, and it goes through a whole bunch of details about it. In terms of when the knives will be arriving to us to then go ahead and ship to the end users, we're waiting on an answer from Riyadh, and I don't have it yet in terms of what the firm timeline is, and they've been delayed, and wait times are not fun right now. So what we're telling people and what we feel confident in based on the way things are going and the information we do have is first quarter of 2022. We'd love for it to be quicker. Hopefully it will be, but what you can count on if you're pre-ordering one of these is first quarter 2022 for delivery date. Yeah, we'll become more specific as we can be. Anyway, hopefully that answers most of the questions. We did a live tonight just before I did this that answered a lot of that. It's going to be posted on the Luft Concepts Instagram. So there should be, between Instagram and the website and the videos that I've done, just about all of the answers that you need if you care to research it. If not, shoot me a message or shoot us a message on Luft Concepts and we'll try to get to you. It's going to be crazy these next couple of days, I'm sure. But anyway, Let's talk about the knife. I'm going to do the review based off of this version that I have here, this variant, but all of the features and aspects between each variant are identical. The difference is in finishing. It's aesthetics, right? So both feature M390 blade steel, which has been hollow ground to 15 thousandths behind the edge. That was our target thinness behind the edge, and Riat hit it. It's a nice tall hollow grind. You're going to have micarta on each variant. If you get the belt satin, you're getting black micarta. The hardware is going to be changed slightly in the sense that it'll be the same hardware, but it won't be satin like this on the production version. It'll be blasted to match the backspacer and the liners, if you can see that. So the backspacer and the liners are currently this kind of blasted finish. The clip and the hardware will match that in production. They're not going to be this kind of polished satin like you see here. This knife does have full titanium liners that are nested on both sides. Total weight, it comes in at 3 ounces. The coated version, when Metal Complex put it on his scale, said 3 ounces even. This variant showed 2.95, I think, on both of the people who I saw weigh it. So 3 ounces or just under. Apparently the coating adds 0.05 of an ounce or whatever that is. Yeah, what am I missing in terms of build? Micarta, titanium. The hardware is all titanium. The pocket clip is going to be steel. It's a wire loop over clip. And M390 for the blade, of course. So that's what we're working with materials wise. In terms of size, I'll show some comparisons, but the blade is sitting right at about 3.3 inches. Overall length, I don't remember. It's listed on the site. It's yeah, look there, because I'm not a specs heavy guy. I'm going to talk more about how this knife feels and performs and all that. That's the way I roll. But you'll also see it next to some other examples. Yeah, let's jump into ergos, carry, cutting, and action, the typical things that I talk about with a knife. And I'll probably go off into the weeds a little bit about why we made certain decisions on it. Oh, another big change before I jump into that I should mention as well. Not a huge change. It's actually very, very tiny. But the flipper tab is a little pointy on these prototypes. It comes to a pretty distinct point there. We posted a photo on our Instagram today showing the slight reprofiling of the tip of the flipper tab. The flipper tab is essentially staying exactly the same, except that very tip, the corner, is just being knocked off. The chamfering will still be matched to the chamfering that's on it now, so it'll be chamfered where it's knocked off as well. But it's just going to soften up that corner a tiny bit. It is not much material removed, but it just removes the very point, puts a little bit of a flat there, makes it more comfortable if you do want to push button it, but also leaves the flipper tab to still have the profile, which is perfect for light switching. So that's going to be the only other real change. Besides, I guess I can mention as well, on the flipper tab, the Luft Concepts logo, if you can see that there, right now faces this way, right? It's up and down right now. Top of it here, bottom of it there. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees so that it goes vertically with the knife. So the top of it will now be at the top of the flipper tab, and then the bottom of it will be down towards the tip of the knife when closed. So that's a small change. Yeah, there you have it. All right, so ergos. We designed this knife for our hands, mine and Ryan's, and we have the same ergonomic preferences when it comes to knives. This knife ergonomically just obviously fits like a glove. We went through a couple of phases. We talk about this in the podcast we did together, where we first started with like wooden prototypes that Ryan made, and he sent back to me, and I sent back to him, and we made little adjustments there. And then when we got past that stage of design, we ultimately got to a 3D printed design in plastic. And so we were deliberate about the way that this knife would feel in hand, among many other things, before it became this prototype. So these ergos are dialed. If you're back here in the kind of primary grip on the knife, you have a thumb ramp, which is flat with no jimping. It leads up to a crown spine, which we'll get to, but we did not crown the flat, or the ramp, I should say, where your thumb goes. It is just epic for me. I love this saber grip. It feels like it's meant to be because it was designed to be that way. It's as good as knife ergos get for me personally. The forward choil, if you want to call it that, it's kind of a blend between a choil and a flat, and I don't know how you would describe it, but it was very deliberate as well. With a thumb ramp, it's nice to be able to choke up, kind of like a Spyderco PM2 or Para 3. I love ergonomic like pinch grips like this, but we did it in a way that wouldn't sacrifice a ton of cutting edge and is still really, really comfortable and secure enough that you're not really worried about slipping off of it. So the hidden flipper tab really plays into that. It fills the void between the scales there, so it feels really solid here in this grip. You feel like you've got a lot to hold on to. There's no gap, there's nothing biting into you. Again, no jimping. It's smooth, but it's designed to lock in. So this whole knife locks in all of these grips without needing jimping. That's one of the things for me that's a big deal. I feel like jimping sometimes is a cop-out for ergos that are otherwise not very good. But when you have a knife that's designed with ergos that fit a hand well, and guide the knife into the position where it's supposed to be indexed, you don't really need jimping to hold it there. This is one of those cases, in my opinion. It just works. You've got a little bit of a hump back here, going to this kind of flat at the back of the knife, and that rests into the palm very comfortably in a saber grip, or choked up in this pinch grip. Same thing, feels great. For a draw cut, still very, very comfortable, and I've put it through its paces, believe it or not, doing some draw cutting just to make sure, even though that's a grip hardly anyone's going to use. I use it every now and then, so I like it when a knife is comfortable in that way. Hammer grip is good. Hammer grip even choked up, very good. Reverse grip, really, really good. Part of the reason why I love this kind of flat back here is because it just really rests in well with the thumb. Great in a reverse grip. Reverse grip draw cut, even that is comfortable. Having a handle that's not completely neutral sometimes means a reverse grip or a draw cut in either orientation, but a reverse grip draw cut can oftentimes feel pretty uncomfortable. For me, this feels totally comfortable. A big part of why this knife is comfortable in every way is because we went with a wire clip. No hot spots from the clip. There's no jimping that's rough on your hand. There's no hot spots anywhere. Being a liner lock, you don't have to worry about the corner of where the lock cutout is or anything like that. Everything is just very, very smooth and comfortable. The edges of the micarta all the way around the knife have been chamfered, and Riet killed it on that. They did a great job. It's just great. Nothing is trying to bite you or pinch you or anything like that. It's just comfortable. Let's talk carry for a second because I touched on the pocket clip. Wire pocket clips are my absolute favorite. I just love them, especially when they're loop over and deep carry. One of my things, many people have pointed out, and it's totally fair to say, I like it when clips go all the way to the butt end of the knife, and this one doesn't quite. We weren't originally going to go with a wire clip, believe it or not, and the clip we had kind of designed for it would have gone to the edge of the knife, or the end of the knife, but it just wasn't quite right for the design in other ways. And so ultimately we landed on a wire clip because we both just, I don't know, we should have started there, but it's our first design. And we got to the wire clip because we both love it. And functionally it's our favorite, and we feel like it works incredibly well with the design. And with the backspacer design and the way that everything is set up, it just doesn't work to get it quite all the way to the butt end of the knife. Still carries quite deep in pocket. You can see there's only a very little corner that sticks out. So it is what it is, but it's almost all the way deep carry. And on future designs, you can bet that I will make sure it goes all the way to the butt end of the knife. And if you want to make fun of me for that, so be it. I deserve it. All right, so in terms of carry, being at or just below 3 ounces, this knife is very light. Being pretty thin in this direction, we're under a ½ an inch. I believe it's like 0.46. It's nice and thin in pocket. You'll notice the profile. For having a hole opening deployment, it's not crazy tall. We kept everything relatively trim this way. Having a thumb ramp in a hole definitely adds a little bit of size, but it's still manageable to say the least. And the flipper tab, since it goes kind of vertically rather than protruding outward, stays kind of in line with the whole knife. it's a comfortable profile. You've also got this kind of ramp if you are reaching in past your knife to get to your wallet or whatever. I carry this front right pocket most of the time, and my wallet goes in the same pocket. I'm reaching in for my wallet all the time. It's very comfortable to do it with that back spacer back there, and the way that it's kind of ramped to allow your hand into the pocket, with the skinniest point being up here at the entrance of the pocket. It just works really well. So yeah, it's light, it's fairly thin, it's pretty smooth everywhere. This micarta has a natural kind of little bit of grip to it without being aggressive or like overly textured. So it slides in and out of pocket just fine. The pocket clip gives you plenty of retention. I've had no issues with this knife slipping out of any kind of pockets. Today I literally wore like sweat shorts that aren't very thick, and no problem. Goes in and out of thick jeans, no problem. Wire clips just function so freaking well. Yeah, so there you have it. It carries like a dream. Like I want a knife to carry, of course. Let's talk action. So action on this knife, in my opinion, is a freaking ton of fun. It's got multiple deployment methods, which just adds to the fun. So basically you have the flipper tab, which is, I don't know, some would say the primary method of deployment, others would say it's the whole, I guess. Call it whatever you want. It's got both. So you've got the flipper tab, which again is going to get that minor change, but it's still going to function the same. The detent is staying the same, and you'll still be incentivized to kind of light switch it with the positioning of the clip. And it's set above the pivot in a way that gives you a lot of torque, and it just works well. The detent breaks clean, and boom, it's snappy. It's a lot of fun. You can see it's very easy to drop down to your thumb, and then you just kind of give it a little bit of a shake. It's a light blade, and yeah, it's not like guillotine drop shutty, but the flip is a lot of fun. I've fidgeted with this knife nonstop for weeks now, and it doesn't get old. On top of having the flipper tab, of course, you have the hole, so you could, if you're a slow roller, you can slow roll it out. If you're a middle finger flicker like me, you can middle finger flick it. The way it works best with this hole positioning is to get to the top of the hole like this and flick it. That said, even if you're at the bottom of the hole, it totally works. If you're at the middle of the hole, it totally works. Even, heck, if you want to use your pinky, totally works. I love that. I really, really like middle finger flicking. You can also, it's going to be kind of hard with this angle, but you can thumb flick it, just push kind of straight forward from the hole, and it thumb flicks fairly well. So if you like thumb flicking, if you like middle finger flicking, if you like ring finger flicking, or pointer finger flicking, or pinky flicking, or flipping, there's a lot of options. You can do like a reverse flip thing. You can do all kinds of stuff, and it's just fun. Again, drops kind of to the nail. What's nice too about that little bit of a choil area is that's what's hitting your nail, not sharpened edge. I mean, obviously be careful if you're not used to doing that, but yeah, it's nice. Drops down, a little shake, bada bing, bada boom. The action's a lot of fun, and having options makes me happy on deployment. All right, so next, or last I should say, would be cutting performance. We were deliberate in the design of this blade. There are a number of blade shapes, frankly, that I like and that Ryan likes, and there will probably be more to come eventually, but we both really, really like the functionality of this blade shape. You could call it kind of a drop point, maybe even a, I don't know, is that a trailing point? Maybe a little bit. You could kind of call it a Japanese tanto or a modified tanto or modified drop point. I don't know what would be the name for it. It's just what we like and what we designed. But we have a tall hollow grind, and then in terms of the actual like cutting profile, we've got a distinct flat here to a pretty abrupt belly, and then the tip, which comes up and retains a pretty decent amount of thickness compared to how thin the edge is down here. So you've got a fairly robust tip, although it is still precise enough that when I've done like precision-oriented tasks, opening little bits of packaging and stuff, I've still found that it does really well. There are different advantages to different blade shapes, of course. If you have something like a Warncliffe, it's nice because to get the tip down into tape or something, you just barely have to pivot and then the tip is down into there, right? For A blade shape like this, if you wanted to get the tip down in, you of course have to rotate quite a bit more. But with this kind of abrupt belly, functioning a little bit like a Tanto, I find I can drag that through shallow surfaces quite well and make the cuts that I want to make. I also find if I'm cutting on a board or something and I'm like rocking through something, having that belly is super helpful because I can kind of start at the tip and roll my way down through a cut if I'm on a surface. So it's just a pretty versatile shape in my opinion, and it's usable and it's approachable. If you're somebody who's, I don't know, not as deep into knives as I am, I think this knife is probably a little more familiar than something like a Wharncliffe. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it just feels like a knife that it's not complicated to use, or you don't have to overthink. It just cuts kind of like a knife should. That said, being at 15 thousandths behind the edge with a nice tall hollow and a phenomenal edge that they put on it over at Reat for us, it's just excellent. It slices really, really well. I've put it through a ton of cardboard. I've put it through several apples. I've put it through a bunch of paracord. I've done a little bit of feather sticking with it at this point. I've done, let's see, paracord, cardboard, tape, packaging, clamshell packaging, zip ties, rubber bands. I mean, I've cut a whole lot of stuff with it. Everything that's been in my path for the last several weeks that's needed to be cut, it's been the Avant that has cut it. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with how it performs. I find the blade supremely functional. It's a good balance of being a thin cutting geometry without being so thin that it's dainty, right? Like when we told Reat our target thinness behind the edge was 15 thousandths, which again they hit. That was a deliberate decision on our part, in the sense that going thinner than that on a production knife seems a little bit like you might be asking for people, I don't know, using a knife in a way that it's not designed for, but even other knives are. Like, people shouldn't be prying with knives, and they know that. If you break off the tip of your knife because you're prying with it, it's not a pry bar. You shouldn't be. But if you're putting it through a hard cutting task, and you're pushing on the blade the way you're supposed to, and you have a failure, then super, super thin knives oftentimes just aren't as well equipped to do that, because they function better at different cutting tasks. But this is a kind of every person's everyday knife to be used for the typical things people cut. And so within that realm, we felt like 15 thousandths was the right line of being nice and thin and slicey, to the point where it's going to cut very well and people will be impressed with it, but we're not going to be worried about any fragility or anything like that. Is it possible we'll design something even thinner down the line? Maybe. Is it possible we'll design some thicker, more bruiser type knives? Probably. So stuff may come down the line that'll be different, but this blade shape, its proportions, its balance, and the way it's done, it makes me really, really happy. So yeah, that's carry, cutting, ergos, and action. That's all the things I typically talk about. So I guess that's kind of it on full review. Again, most biased person in the world here about this knife, except for maybe Ryan. I guess it's a tie between he and I. But I'm proud of this knife. Something that I think is worth saying as well is I don't expect this knife to be everybody's favorite in the world. There are plenty of people who have different preferences than mine on knives, but this knife nailed it on having all of the things that I want on a knife in my pocket and not having any of the things that I specifically don't want. And so it's a knife that's designed for my preferences, not for everybody's, mine and Ryan's. And luckily our preferences are totally parallel. It's a knife for us. And if it happens to be something that speaks to you as well and to people at large, then that would be fantastic. But I'm not trying to sit here and say that this is the greatest knife that has ever been developed. That wouldn't be fair to say. I think that's a moving target, even on an individual level. Preferences change even for individuals. But this isn't going to be everybody's favorite in the world. But man, I'm stoked with what it is. And I think people will like it. I think the decisions we made here, the hidden flipper tab with the way this choil is set up, the ergos of the handle, the wire clip and the way it functions, the thumb ramp, which is flat and leads to a transition to a crown spine, which makes the knife just feel better, the size and positioning and shape of the hole, the way that the flipper tab functions, the thinness behind the edge, the nested liners, the lightweight construction, the way it's all done, I think is going to resonate with people. I think it's good. And yeah, maybe that's me going out on a limb a little bit, but again, I don't think everybody is going to inherently love it. There are people who have wildly different preferences than I do. There are knives that I really dislike that are other people's favorite knives. Obviously, there's a difference in preferences, but I think a lot of people will like this. So, yeah, let's go ahead and switch. We'll go tabletop view for a minute, do some size comparisons, and we'll kind of finish it up there. And yeah, let's switch it up. All right, so this is weird doing a tabletop thing. Not normally me, but here we have the Avant. Before anybody asks, this is a Renegade Provisions Co. or Renegade EDC Matt. You can check him out on Instagram at either of those monikers. He's a good buddy, and this Matt is awesome. But anyway, so here's the Avant in all its glory. You can see kind of in my hand proportions here. Yeah, I'm not used to doing tabletop. Let's go ahead and jump right to some size comparisons. So I think the probably most standard that I can do is going to be the PM2 and the Para 3. I'll line them up kind of pivot to pivot here as best I can. You'll see the Avant sits basically in the middle of the PM2 and the Para 3. If you're looking cutting edge to cutting edge, it's about dead nuts with the PM2, maybe just a hair less cutting edge than the PM2, but it's real close. The handle length is going to be closer, honestly, to the Para 3 the way I see it. Let me switch them too in case the aspect ratio is different for you. But yeah, I mean, it's close. It's like a kind of a sweet spot, in my opinion, between the two. Yeah, so there you have that. PM2, Para 3. Obviously, these PM2s and Para 3s are, this PM2 and this Para 3 are both wearing aftermarket scales. This is a River's Edge Cutlery exclusive 10V PM2 wearing some Flytanium micarta scales that I still need to review. And then this Maximet Para 3 is wearing some Cerberus fish scale micarta scales. So their skinny scales are a little different, but overall proportions you can see. That's the PM3 Para 3 that I have. This is the PM2 that I have next to me at the moment. But there you have that. Let's look at, here's a good one. Giant Mouse Ace Grand. You'll see these are almost the same in proportions. We really liked the size of the Ace Grand. It's kind of a sweet spot for Ryan and I. So we were both keeping knives like the Ace Grand in mind when picking proportions. These knives feel pretty radically different in terms of, I don't know, weight and sensation and philosophy of use. All of that is not quite identical, but they're also relatively similar in build and spec. Let's just, again, in case aspect ratio is different for you, but you can see blade length were pretty much identical, handle length pretty much identical, and construction is very similar between these two. Let's do another one. Let's do, here we go, Protect Malibu. Also a good EDC sized knife that a lot of people have and love. You'll see blade length, we're pretty close. Looks to me like a hair more blade length on the Avant, but not by a ton. I believe the Malibu sits at like 3.25 and this being at 3.3. That makes sense why it's real close. Malibu handle is going to be shorter though. So there you go. If the Malibu feels a little too small for you, you get a little more real estate on the Avant. If this is the perfect size for you, then maybe you have a little too much real estate on the Avant. I don't know. It's a size comparison, right? You decide for yourself. But there you have that. I'll throw into the mix the Mordax, since I've got that as well, the other ProTech button lock that I own. The Mordax is a little more blade length, it looks like, but the handle size is closer to what you've got on the Avant, and you've got a forward choil here. So if we go cutting edge to cutting edge, it's actually, that's kind of interesting. It's closer. Looks like you do still have a little more cutting edge on the Mordax than you do on the Avant, but there you have a Mordax next to it. Let's see, next, just for fun, oh, let's do this. A lot of people mention the Koenig when talking about the Avant. Koenig has been one of my favorite knives for a very long time, so to call it an inspiration, I think, would be fair. I certainly don't think the Avant is even close to the same knife as the Koenig Arius, but you can see there are some similarities, and there you go. So the Arius is certainly the bigger knife, got a lot more in the handle especially, but yeah, great looking knife. I freaking love the Arius. Next, let's do something quite a bit bigger, like Shiro Quantum. It actually doesn't make the Quantum look that huge. I guess the Quantum isn't a giant knife, but you can see if I go kind of end of the scales there, yeah, I don't know, pivot to pivot, that seems about right to me. There you have that one. And I don't know, let's do a Spyderco Shaman. I guess that would be fun. Spyderco Shaman. There you have that. Looks like, yeah, again, cutting edge is relatively close. Shaman's definitely got what seems to me to be the bigger handle, bigger grip area, if you will. There's that. I don't think I did the Jaeger yet. The Jaeger's a knife that I love and a lot of people love, and those who are have one probably carry it a ton and are familiar with how it feels. So there's that. The Avant is going to be a little bit bigger than the Jaeger, both in blade length and in handle size. Not a ton, but a little bit. So there's that. And let's see. Oh, here's one that people mention when mentioning the Avant quite a bit. The Urban EDC Supply Voxnays F5.5, because it's also Riat built, also titanium nested liner lock, also M390 on some of the versions, although some were LMAX, titanium backspace, a really similar build. So there you have that. Obviously the Avant is going to be bigger in terms of overall length. The F5.5 is a fairly small knife, but it's wider, so I don't know, smaller in terms of length, that's fair to say. Let me think if there's anything else in here that really makes perfect sense to do that with. There's a Microtech Troodon. I don't know if that helps. Maybe somebody has a Troodon, wants to see that side by side. I guess I could keep pulling out knives all day long and keep showing you side by side comparisons, but I think that's a pretty good gist of the size. Yeah, the knives that it's closest to in size really are going to be like the Ace Grand, and that's probably the closest that I have. See how the large swayback is actually in terms of proportions. That's not that far off from the large Pena swayback. Again, this is the large version, that's not the small X series swayback, that's the larger one. But yeah, there you have it, size comparison. I'll switch back to my face for a moment to do kind of a sign off, but there's your side by side. All right. Okay, so this has been a very long video at this point, and obviously is super duper incredibly biased, but this is my knife, guys. I co-designed this and created a company around it that is now becoming a reality, and it's a really exciting moment. So if you aren't interested in it and don't like it or whatever, think it's too expensive, think whatever it is that you think, that's fine. Like, genuinely, don't even feel bad. Don't feel like you have to feel bad. Don't feel like I expect you to. Like, this has just been super, super fun for me. I hope that people like it. I hope that people appreciate it for the things that I appreciate in it. But I don't know. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be doing this, to be kind of opening a new chapter of my existence in the EDC world, and being an enthusiast of knives, to take it to the next step, right? Like, been an enthusiast of knives for a long time, and then having been a reviewer of knives now for a little while, and then taking it even further than that to a designer of knives and co-owner of a knife company that designs and sells knives. That's a really cool thing. So for those of you that have been supportive, I genuinely, sincerely appreciate it. It means a ton. I'm excited to see what the pre-order does tomorrow. That's going to be a wild ride to be on the other side of it for the first time ever. And yeah, I guess I'm a little bit at a loss for words, because it's just a lot right now, and it means a lot, the amount of support that there's been. But yeah, I don't have any grand illusion about this being like earth-shattering or the greatest thing to ever happen to knife design or anything like that. I've just set out with a friend of mine to create a knife that we really, really wanted to have ourselves. And I can already hang my hat on the sensation that I genuinely have that we did that. Even if it stopped with us just having these prototypes, having a real tangible knife that we designed that we get to carry and use and experience has been a trip in and of itself. But it's exciting to think what could come in the future, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you genuinely to all of those of you who have supported. Yeah, and thank you just for watching, being a part of it. And if you made it to this point in the video, you're my hero. You're the best. I appreciate it, guys. Hopefully this wasn't corny or cheesy or cringy or any of those things. I really struggle with self-promotion. Yeah, I'd rather let things speak for themselves than have to feel like I have to speak for them. But I tried to be open in this video and just talk about what I actually think and feel. And again, full transparency, couldn't be more biased. That's the way it is. So calling this a review even is not necessarily probably totally fair, but I don't know what else to call it. So it is what it is. Thanks for watching, guys. You're the best. I appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.